All right, strap yourselves in, folks, because we are diving headfirst into the multiverse today.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling your stack of sources about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Lots to unpack then.
You've got it all. You've got the basic film details from IMDb.
Yeah.
Some really passionate user reviews.
Always good.
Some people loved it. Some people were so confused.
Yeah.
And even a deep dive film analysis that breaks down the director's style.
Oh, excellent.
So is this film a masterpiece or just a multiversal mess?
That's the question, isn't it?
Let's find out.
Let's do it.
What I thought was really interesting is that a few of the reviews you've sent in actually wished for a director's cut of the film.
Really?
Yeah, which suggests that maybe they felt like something was missing, like some key context or some character development.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with how a lot of reviewers felt like the plot was either too basic or way too complicated.
Yeah, I see.
Almost like the film couldn't decide what it wanted to be.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that makes me think about how this film handles Wanda Maximoff,
Also.
the Scarlet Witch.
Right.
She is such a complex character
Absolutely.
with a lot of backstory in the comics.
Oh, yeah. Decades work.
And even more baggage after the events of WandaVision.
Right. Yeah.
And this film really leans into that previous storyline,
It does.
which might explain why some people felt like Doctor Strange was almost sidelined in his own movie.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It's like he's constantly reacting to Wanda instead of driving his own story.
Reacting to her chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you think that because it builds so much on the previous story, that automatically makes it a bad sequel?
That's a good question.
Or is that what sequels are supposed to do?
It really gets to the heart of what makes a sequel successful.
Okay.
It's a very delicate balance. You need to honor the past, but you also need to forge a new path at the same time.
Yeah. And maybe for some viewers, they felt like the scales were tipped a little too far towards Wanda's story.
Okay.
And so Doctor Strange was kind of left in this reactive role.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so we've got this potentially unbalanced plot. We've got this really complex villain that might be stealing the show.
Right.
And a whole bunch of people wishing for a director's cut to kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So where does the director, Sam Raimi, fit into all of this?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because the reviews and the analysis really highlight his unique style.
Well, he's known for.
This kind of blend of superhero action with horror.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
That's a very fair assessment. He is a master at blurring those lines between horror and action.
Right.
He's known for the Evil Dead franchise, which
Right.
is pure horror.
Right.
But then he also directed the original Spider-Man trilogy. So, he has experience in both of those worlds.
Right, so he's coming at this with a unique perspective.
Yep.
Some reviewers actually call out some classic Raimi-isms, like dissolving faces,
Oh, yeah, he loves those.
really fast whip hand camera moves.
Yeah, very kinetic, his style.
And one review even mentioned a music note battle.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, what?
That sounds about right.
What is that?
I mean, it really exemplifies how he uses everyday objects in these unexpected, sometimes unsettling ways.
Okay.
Remember in Spider-Man 2 when Doc Ock plays the piano with his metal arms?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's creepy, and it's cool, and it's funny all at the same time.
Yeah, he always finds a way to inject a little bit of humor even in the darkest moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those melting faces, that's not just a visual effect. You could read that as a metaphor for how our sense of self can shift and distort when we're encountering different versions of ourselves in the multiverse.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's layers to this.
There's layers to everything he does.
So it sounds like Raimi is bringing his horror background to this superhero film.
Absolutely.
But he's also using those elements to tell a deeper story. Maybe even comment on the themes of identity in the multiverse itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's not just throwing in scary visuals for shock value. He's using them to enhance the story, to
Yeah.
make us think about what's happening on screen.
Okay, so that brings us to the multiverse itself.
Okay.
The reviews are full of praise for the stunning visuals.
Oh, yeah, it's a visual feast.
But there's a lot of debate about whether those alternate universes are really integrated into the plot,
Right.
or if they're just these flashy distractions.
It's a tough balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
The multiverse, it's a tricky thing to handle in storytelling. It creates all these endless possibilities,
Right.
but it can also lead to a lack of focus.
Right.
You know, like, the film is more concerned with showing off all these cool alternate realities than telling a good story.
Right, just one after another.
Exactly.
Yeah, the user reviews mention some really incredible visuals.
Oh, I bet.
Like the paint universe, where everything is literally made of paint.
Oh, wow, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That sounds incredible.
One review said it was like watching a Salvador Dali painting come to life.
Yeah.
But then that same review questioned whether it served the plot at all. Or if it was just there for the wow factor.
Right. That's the key question, isn't it? Does it serve the story?
Yeah.
Think of it this way. If you take out the paint universe, does the story still work?
Yeah, good point.
Does it change the outcome of the film?
Right.
If it doesn't, then maybe it was just there for the spectacle.
It's a good test. I like that.
It's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, if it's just there to look cool, then maybe it is a distraction.
All right.
But if taking it out would fundamentally change the story, then it's serving a purpose beyond just the visuals.
Exactly. And that's where things like editing and pacing come into play, you know.
Oh, interesting.
The technical aspects of filmmaking.
Right.
So we can see how Raimi uses his signature style to enhance the story. But did the editing choices help or hinder the flow of the narrative? Did they allow these multiversal elements to breathe and contribute to the plot? Or did they cram too much into a limited runtime?
Which makes me think about those reviewers who wanted the director's cut. Maybe they felt like the pacing was off, that the story was rushed, and that maybe a longer runtime would have allowed for a more nuanced exploration of both the multiverse and Doctor Strange's journey within it.
It's possible, yeah. Certain scenes might have been cut that could have provided more context or allowed certain characters to breathe a bit more.
So we've got this complex villain in Wanda,
Right.
this director who is blending horror and superhero elements in really interesting ways.
Yeah.
And a multiverse that might be more about spectacle than substance. And somewhere in the middle of all that is Doctor Strange trying to figure out where he fits into all of this.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, what are your initial thoughts on all of this?
Well, I think I'm starting to see why some people are really pushing for that director's cut.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot more to explore here.
Yeah.
Maybe even a completely different version of the film hiding beneath the surface.
Ooh, I like that. A completely different version.
Maybe.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll dive even deeper into this whole director's cut idea and what might have been left on the cutting room floor.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back. Okay, so we're really starting to see how all of these different elements, the director's style, the plot, the characters, how they all kind of weave together.
Yeah, they're all interconnected.
But I want to zero in on this whole director's cut idea for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Because you mentioned earlier that some reviewers felt like something was missing.
Right.
What do you think those missing pieces could be?
Well, if we're going by the user reviews, it seems like the biggest desire is for more character development.
Okay.
Especially for Doctor Strange himself. Several reviewers felt like he was overshadowed by Wanda, almost like a passenger in his own story.
Yeah.
So a director's cut could potentially give us more insight into his internal conflict.
Okay.
His motivations, his reactions to the events unfolding around him.
One reviewer actually said they wish the film had explored Doctor Strange's guilt over the events of Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like they felt like that trauma was just kind of glossed over.
That's a really good point. We see glimpses of his emotional scars, but they're never really fully explored.
Right.
Imagine a scene where he's like having a nightmare about those events.
Yeah.
Or maybe a conversation with another character where he confides his feelings of, responsibility and regret.
Right.
Those added moments could give us a much deeper understanding of his emotional state going into this whole multiversal chaos.
Right. So we're not just talking about adding more action or more special effects.
Right.
We're talking about deepening the emotional core of the film, giving us a better understanding of what drives these characters.
Yes.
Especially Doctor Strange.
Especially Doctor Strange. And that additional character development could also potentially address that criticism that the plot felt basic.
Oh.
Because if we see more of Doctor Strange's internal struggle, his proactive choices, his growth as a character, the plot becomes less about reacting to Wanda's rampage and more about his own journey of self-discovery.
So that director's cut could potentially fix a lot of the issues that people had with the film.
It's possible.
Flesh out the characters, add emotional depth, maybe even give the plot a little bit more weight and meaning.
Right, because you're getting more of the why.
Yeah. But let's go back to those multiversal elements for a second.
Okay.
One of the reviews specifically mentioned the Illuminati scene.
Ah, yeah.
And how it felt like pure fan service.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a valid criticism. You got Professor X from the X-Men, Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four, Captain Carter from What If.
It's like a who's who of Marvel characters.
It is. It's a parade of familiar faces from other Marvel properties.
Right.
But the question is, do they serve the story?
Yeah.
Or are they just there to excite the audience?
One of the reviews actually asked, did we need the Illuminati? Like, could those characters have been removed and it not affect the overall plot?
That's the question, isn't it? If their presence doesn't fundamentally change the course of the narrative, then yeah, it feels like gratuitous fan service.
Yeah, just like, hey, look who we got. Remember these guys.
Exactly.
But couldn't you argue that those characters serve a purpose by highlighting the dangers of the multiverse?
How so?
They show Doctor Strange what happens when powerful individuals make questionable choices.
Okay.
And maybe that influences his own actions later on in the film.
That's a very good point. The Illuminati could represent like a cautionary tale.
Okay.
A warning about the potential consequences of unchecked power and misguided intentions. Their presence could serve as a catalyst for Doctor Strange's own character development, pushing him to question his methods and consider the broader implications of his choices.
Okay, so maybe those cameos aren't just fan service.
Right.
Maybe they're serving a thematic purpose.
Exactly.
Even if it's not immediately obvious.
Right.
But that brings us back to Raimi and his distinctive style.
Okay.
The analysis really dives into his use of symbolism and visual metaphors.
Oh, yeah.
Like those melting faces we talked about earlier.
He loves those.
What do you make of that?
Well, Raimi is a very visual storyteller.
Okay.
He doesn't rely solely on dialogue to convey meaning. He uses imagery, sound design, even editing techniques to create this really visceral experience for the viewer.
Okay.
Think of it like this. He's painting a picture, but he's also giving you the brushstrokes,
Right.
allowing you to see how those individual elements contribute to the overall composition.
And that connects back to those reviewers who felt like the film was trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Maybe they were missing those subtle visual cues.
Right.
Those layers of meaning that Raimi's known for.
Right.
Maybe a director's cut could have slowed things down a bit, given the audience more time to absorb those details and appreciate the artistry behind the spectacle.
It's like the difference between, skimming a book and savoring every word.
Yeah.
If you rush through it, you're going to miss the nuances, the hidden depths, the connections that make it truly meaningful.
So maybe that's the real argument for a director's cut.
Okay.
Not just to add more content,
Right.
but to refine the pacing, to give those visual metaphors and character moments the space they need to breathe.
Exactly. It's not about making the film longer.
Right.
It's about making it richer, more layered, more in line with Raimi's signature style.
More Raimi.
More Raimi.
Yeah. But even without a director's cut, there's still a lot to unpack here.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot to discuss and debate.
Tons.
We've got these conflicting viewpoints.
Yeah.
These unanswered questions.
Right.
These hints of something deeper lurking beneath the surface.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What aspects of the film stand out to you? What resonates with you personally?
Honestly, I am fascinated by the idea that there could be a completely different version of this film out there. One that addresses all the criticisms.
Okay.
One that fulfills Raimi's original vision.
Right.
It makes you wonder what choices were made in the editing room.
Yeah, what ended up on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, what scenes were left behind.
Yeah.
And how those decisions ultimately shaped the film that we saw in theaters.
Because film is such a collaborative medium.
Right. There are so many hands involved in the process.
There really are. From the script to the screen, it's a whole team effort.
It's like we've stumbled into one of those branching timelines in the film.
Oh, yeah.
Where every choice, creates a new reality.
Creates a new universe.
Yeah. So in one reality, the film that we saw is the only one that exists.
Right.
But in another, there's a director's cut out there just waiting to be discovered.
Waiting to be unleashed.
Yeah. And it might totally change how we see the whole story.
Absolutely. Yeah. It could recontextualize everything.
And that's kind of what makes this whole conversation so interesting.
Yeah.
We're not just analyzing a film. We're exploring The creative process itself.
The choices that filmmakers make.
Yeah, the scenes that get cut.
Yeah.
How those decisions shape the final product.
And how audiences experience it.
Yeah, and speaking of those choices, I'm still thinking about Wanda.
Okay.
We talk about how some reviewers felt like her arc was rushed.
Right.
Or that it didn't line up with how she was portrayed in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Do you think a director's cut could have addressed that?
It's possible. Imagine if we'd seen more of her internal struggle, her grappling with the grief and loss that fuel her actions.
Okay.
Maybe there were scenes that delved deeper into her psychological state,
Right.
showing the gradual descent into darkness, rather than just presenting her as a fully formed villain.
Yeah, like maybe instead of just seeing her lash out, we see her trying to resist those darker impulses,
Right.
but ultimately succumbing to them.
Right. Showing that inner conflict.
Yeah, it would make her a more tragic figure,
Absolutely.
and maybe even more relatable,
More human.
despite her villainous actions.
Yeah, because we can all relate to, struggling with difficult emotions.
Right.
Making those tough choices.
And those added scenes could also create a stronger contrast with Doctor Strange.
Oh,
If
interesting.
we see him actively trying to help Wanda
Yeah.
to, like, reach her through the darkness,
Yeah,
it kind of elevates his role in the story a little bit.
it does.
He becomes more than just reacting to her chaos.
He becomes like the voice of reason,
Yeah.
the force trying to pull her back from the brink.
So a director's cut could potentially make both Wanda and Doctor Strange more compelling characters.
Yeah.
By giving them both more depth and complexity.
Or nuance.
Yeah, it's like we're piecing together a whole new film in our hands.
It is. Yeah, it's fascinating.
But even without that hypothetical director's cut, I
Right.
think we've gained a much deeper appreciation for the film that we did see.
Oh, absolutely. We've really explored the director's style, debated the effectiveness of the multiverse, analyzed the characters, their motivations. We've even pondered the existence of alternate versions of the film itself.
It's pretty meta.
It is. It is.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener? You came to us with a stack of sources, a mix of opinions, and a curiosity about whether Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a masterpiece or a mess.
The age-old question.
And I think we can safely say it's both.
It's a film that embraces complexity,
Okay.
challenges expectations,
Yeah.
doesn't shy away from difficult themes or unsettling imagery.
It definitely doesn't.
It's a film that invites multiple interpretations,
Right.
sparks debate, lingers in your mind long after the credits roll.
It gets you thinking.
It does. It sticks with you.
And maybe, just maybe, there's another version out there that's even more thought-provoking, even more visually stunning, even more emotionally resonant.
The ultimate what if.
We may never know for sure,
Right.
but the possibility itself is pretty exciting.
It is. It keeps the conversation going.
So keep exploring those possibilities, keep questioning, keep those multiversal gears turning. And if you're looking to delve deeper into the characters and themes we've discussed today, we highly recommend checking out WandaVision.
Oh, yeah. That's a great companion piece.
It's a fascinating exploration of grief, trauma, and the power of creating your own reality, even if that reality is ultimately an illusion.
And for those of you who want to experience more of Sam Raimi's unique blend of horror, humor, and visual storytelling, be sure to check out his other films.
Oh yeah, he's got a great filmography.
He does. You can see those same elements at play even in stories that aren't set in the multiverse.
So our journey through the multiverse of Doctor Strange has come to an end, at least in this reality.
Right, in this timeline.
But who knows what adventures await us in those other timelines.
Those branching paths of possibility.
And maybe, just maybe, in another reality, Doctor Strange got that 3-hour runtime.
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
And that musical number with the dancing demons.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Now, that's a multiverse I would like to visit.
Me too.